So I want to dive right into the Tu BiShvat Seder. Of course, in order to best prepare ourselves for Tu BiShvat that falls tonight and tomorrow, the 15th of Shvat in the Hebrew calendar. Now, as we know, 15th of Shvat is the Rosh Hashanah, the year of the trees. And since the Torah proclaims that Ki ha'adam etz hasadeh, that man is like the tree of the field, so we celebrate this new year in the most tangible way, as we will soon see, to celebrate this, again, this comparison between the tree of the field, us, human beings. Now, if we want to go deeper into it, even before we begin the Seder year, I dare ask the question of what is really in common between the tree of the field and a human being. I mean, yes, we benefit from them, not just from their fruits, but also from the oxygen that they provide and so on. But still, what is the common denominator between the two? So for that, we have many answers, but I'm going to provide one or maybe two specific answers also from the Kabbalists. And I'm saying also from the Kabbalists because it is the Kabbalists of Tzfat that introduced the Seder that we're about to do of the 16th century. But they provide two fascinating and I would say deeply relevant answers to why we celebrate Tu BiShvat, beside it being the new tree of the trees. But we celebrate this common denominator between human beings and trees, in the sense that human beings are just like trees, because we too have three dominant components in our existence. Trees have roots, they have their own trunk, and then they have the branches and what they create. So too, we human beings have roots, and those are our ancestors, our heritage. We also have our own independent existence, and more particularly our own individual mission in life. Now we have that which we have to produce for the world, which are the sweet fruits, the good deeds, and the children, biological or spiritual children, that we have to have in life in order for our tree to create also eternity. Now, a healthy tree is a tree that has those three components in the most robust way. And so too, a healthy human being is a human being that has those three components in a robust way. They're very well connected to their roots. We derive might strength, inspiration, and guidance from our roots. But we also know that we have our individuation. We can't just rely, oh, my great-grandfather was a tzaddik, my great-grandmother was a righteous woman. But we too have to be righteous. We too have to pave our own path. And at the same time also, we have to ensure to create as many fruits as possible. So that's one big idea. Another big idea that draws a comparison again, the tree of the field and the human being, Ki Adam Etz Hasadeh, as the vine. And that is that what makes a tree healthy is that it does not stop growing. It forever grows. As long as it is well and alive, it grows and grows and grows. Yes, sometimes its growth, shows, at least on the outside, that it is being dormant, but it's just because it's replenishing its strength from the inside. So to human beings, what makes a human being healthy is that it never stops growing. What I achieved yesterday is not enough for what I have to achieve today. And what I achieved today is not enough for what I will have to achieve tomorrow. Each and every day I must grow. That's why, by the way, the word retirement doesn't exist in biblical Hebrew. We don't believe in retirement. Yes, people can retire from their job, but they certainly have to channel all of their strength, their wisdom, their experience into a new type of growth, into a more elevated type of growth. Really, that's why we really believe in Judaism that to live is to grow just like trees. Okay, having said that, giving this introduction again, called the wisdom of our Kabbalists, let's dive right into the Tu BiShvat Seder. And I would encourage every one of you to do it at home with your families, with your children, with your friends. I know we're in COVID, so in France, as we used to, maybe limited, but spread this beauty of Tu BiShvat, important, most relevant, accessible teachings that the Kabbalists provide through the Seder, not just so that we can celebrate trees on Tu BiShvat, but as mentioned, so that as trees, we too can continue to grow materially and spiritually speaking. So the Tu BiShvat Seder has two parts to it. One part focuses on the fruits that I have right here in front of me. The other part focuses on the cups of wine that we're about to drink. Now, the Kabbalists of Tzfat, who again came up with this idea of having a Seder for Tu BiShvat century, mentioned that there are really 4 types of worlds. 4 types of worlds, according to Kabbalah, are symbolized by 4 types of fruits that we have here in front of us, and also by the 4 cups of wine that we'll also be drinking with 4 different types of colors, as you'll soon see. Now, what are these worlds? These worlds are the world of Atzilut, which is the world of emanation, from which everything begins. The concept of this world really began in Olam Atzilut, which is also a world that in which God dwells the most, or the light of God is as bright and as unreserved as possible, that really no angel, nothing can stand that light, and God dwells there almost alone, except for the souls of very few righteous people in history. Again, these are Kabbalistic ideas, but we believe, for example, as the Kabbalists explain, that the soul of Moses, who came and changed the world, the soul of Rabbi Akiva, and the soul of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the soul of Queen Esther, the soul of great leaders like this who truly came and made an indelible impact on the world, come from this world. Those are the only souls, because they're so holy, they can withstand that light that of God that dwells in that world. That's the world of emanation. That's the first and most elevated world. The second world, according to Kabbalists, is the world of Bria, which means the world of creation. That's where our souls come from. It's a world also where God shines very bright, not as brightly as in that first world of emanation, but it's again a world in which souls come from, in which some angels also reside, and it's a world that is totally good. Then you have the world of Yatsera, which is the world of formation. That's where most of the angels really reside. By the way, that also means that us human beings, potentially through our souls, we are higher than angels. And that light as now more contracted type of godly light, and therefore it doesn't shine as bright as it shines in the first and in the second world, but still, it's a very holy world. There's a little bit of bad, not that there is any bad like there is in this world, but there's a concept that comes from there. Or for example, angel of death, which doesn't do good, it comes from that world. So there's room for bad. Then you have this fourth world, which is right here, and that's called Olam Asiyah, the world of action. It's the world of action because in a way, the focus of this world and the focus of us in this world should be towards action, towards good deeds. And through each and every mitzvah that we do, every good deed that we do, we elevate this world. Now, this world has God, but in a very, very contracted way. And in a way that gives room also a lot of bad to it. And that's why this world it demands a lot of work in order to reveal God's light. When we're able to see that which the naked eye can see more than we see God, when we're able to work with toil, sometimes blood, sweat, and tears, as Churchill put it, and in order to achieve goodness, then we all of a sudden see godliness revealed. But this world, because of the peel of bad that it has, demands a lot of work, a work towards action, and thus the name, the world of action, Olam Asiyah. Those are the four worlds. Now, these four worlds, as you'll soon see, are represented by these fruits and also by the cups of wine. We'll leave the cups of wine for the very end of the Tu BiShvat Seder, even though you can, if you do it at home, you can do it at the beginning. There's no particular order to that. But today I want to begin really with the fruits. So I don't know if you have fruits at home. I know an email went out. I see some of you do, and that's beautiful. And if you don't, that's also just fine. You can be here just for the study. But the first type of fruit is really the fruit that has a peel on the outside, yet has a fruit on the inside. So that is inedible on the outside, yet edible on the inside. For example, you can use the fruit of kiwi right here. I'm going to put it in my plate. Or oranges. This is a blood orange because, again, it has a peel on the outside, but is edible on the inside. And you can even use, and preferably should use, for the Tu BiShvat Seder, one of the 7 fruits of Israel, the fruits that Israel is known for. And that, therefore, I want to use particularly for this first part of the Seder, the pomegranate, which is one of those 7 fruits, again, because that has a peel on the outside, but is sweet on the inside. Now, why is this fruit used for the first part of the Seder? And that is because it represents that world of action. The world of action, as mentioned, that has a lot of bad on the outside, but if we're able to believe in the God that is within and truly peel that bad off, dig within it, then we will find the sweetness of God, the blessings of God. Yes, within every challenge, there's an opportunity. Within every darkness, there is light. In every iota of hope, of despair, there is hope. That is what keeps us going in this world. And this is really what this first part of the Tu BiShvat Seder represents. Those fruits that may be inedible on the outside, like the bad that is inedible in this world. But if we're able to peel it, we'll find tremendous blessings. Now, in addition to the 4 worlds, and I'll mention then we'll say the blessing over the fruit, but in addition to the 4 worlds, this Tu BiShvat Seder also represents 4 different types of people. And as we go through those 4 types, you can raise your hand. I'm just kidding. You don't have to raise your hand to tell me what type of person you think you are, but you can raise your hand. Your inner figure. Think about it. Then ask yourself, who am I? But the first type, as mentioned, is represented by this fruit being inedible on the outside, yet sweet on the inside. Those are the people that on the outside are rough. Yet when you get to know them and you're able to not judge a book by its cover, as they say, then you're able to be rewarded by the sweetness of their being, by the blessing of their fruit. So that's what this first fruit represents. Let's say the blessing over this fruit. Again, you can use any fruit that is inedible on the outside and edible on the outside. I chose pomegranate. It's one of the 7 fruits of Israel, as mentioned. Let's say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri ha'etz. Okay, it's weird doing this on Zoom because usually when I eat, then other people are eating and I'm not too embarrassed. And I have to eat right in front of you on the camera. So I'm trying to minimize my eating. But by the way, everyone is welcome after this class. If you want to come to CBT and keep social distance and wear a mask and so on, you're more than welcome to help me finish all these delicious fruits. All right, friends. So the first fruits, again, represented what we just ate, the fruits that are inedible on the outside and edible on the inside, the world of action that has a lot of bad on the outside and we need to dig to find godliness, and also represents the type of people that are rough on the outside yet so sweet on the inside. Let's go now to the second world, the world higher than us, and that mention is Olam Yatsera, the world of formation, where there's a little bit of bad or room for bad, like the angel of death has mentioned, but it's mainly good. Angels reside in this world, the world of formation. So this world is really represented by the fruits that are edible on the outside, yet inedible on the inside. Part of the 7 fruits rule is not just the pomegranate that we just ate, but also the date. Or you can also use the olive. Olive is also one of the fruits of the 7 fruits of Israel. Now, again, these fruits are inedible just on the inside, but on the outside, they're edible. Now, this represents, again, the world of formation because, as mentioned, it's mostly good, and the good is quite apparent, just like this fruit, where the fruit is apparent and it's mostly fruit. But there is a part of it that is a little bit bad, that it gives room for bad, and that's the pit that's inside. Now, as far as the types of people that this step represents, so this step represents the people that are all nice and sweet on the outside, and they'll smile and fake smile as much as they want to. But when you start to get to know them, you're a little bit disappointed. You see that they have a little pit inside. Now, it does not mean, let me make it clear, that you have to abandon these people and that you have to say to yourself, well, I'm only going to go with the people that are entirely sweet. No, because remember, just like in a fruit, in the pit, there's a lot of potential. Pits can grow trees. It just depends how you relate to it. Bad, by the way, no formation. There's a lot of good. It just depends. You relate to it. Death can be good, if that's the example that we brought before. How can it be good? If it goes and kills all the evil terrorists in this world. So it's good. Just depends how you channel it. So it doesn't mean that if you've encountered some bad, you should run away from it again. It's part of the Tu BiShvat Seder. We're eating it. Same with people. If you encounter a pit in them, even though they seem so nice and now you're a little bit disappointed, doesn't mean that you shouldn't celebrate them. Because even in that bad, there's a lot of potential. It just depends how you relate to it and how you channel it. Okay, so that's the second fruit that is represented here in this Tu BiShvat Seder. I'm going to open the date here. It's best, by the way, according to Jewish law, according to halacha, to always check for worms in these types of dried fruits. Sometimes they cripple in. Of course, worms are not kosher. We'll leave it up to the Chinese to eat them. But according to the Torah, they're not kosher, so therefore we don't eat worms. But this date seems fine. Now we already said the blessing before, and therefore we'll just eat this second type of fruit, and have in mind again all the people that may be nice on the outside, yet we were disappointed because we find a little pit in them. Of course, we'll have in mind also the second world, Kabbalistic world, Olam Yatsera, that is mostly good, mostly fruity on the outside, has had a little bit of bad. All right. Okay, now, the third type of fruit. The third type of fruit again represents Olam HaBriah, the world of creation, which we said is entirely good. That's where our souls come from. God's light shines there very, very brightly, almost without any serious contraction, as it needs to tract itself going further down. Now, this fruit that represents this world are the fruits that are entirely edible. So, for example, as you can see, I have some berries here. I think these are called gooseberries, right here, or blueberries, or again, I'm going to use one of the fruits of Israel, the 7 fruits of the land of Israel, and that's the fig. This is a dried fig. It's entirely edible. So you can use that. Or if you want, I don't know if this is about raisins, which of course are grapes, are also one of the 7 fruits of Israel. If they seedless grapes, really. I don't know if seeded grapes count. Seedless are entirely edible. And let's see if I have any other fruits like this here. No, but again, figs or raisins or berries that are entirely edible. Now, again, this fruit represents not just the world of Bria, of creation, that is entirely good and has God's light almost shining unreservedly, but it represents a third type of people. Third type of people are ill. And those are the type of people that are sweet on the outside and sweet on the inside. The more you get to know them, the more you realize that they weren't putting up any facades, but they are really sweet. They are divine. They are filled with blessings. Connecting with these people is the most rewarding thing in the world. It's really one of the most friendships. It's entirely good. And of course, we are not just celebrating those people, but we are celebrating also the potential that is within us to be like those people, if we're not like them already. We too ought to strive to be entirely good, not just side, to be nice and polite and superficial sometimes, so to really mean it, to have passion, to have heart, to have goodness in everything that we do, every encounter. So, okay, we're going to eat those fruits that are entirely edible. We don't have to say the blessing of Shaykh because we already said it before. And again, I would recommend, if you're eating dried fruits, to check worms, as mentioned. This fig seems fine. Okay. So those are the edible fruits. I'm going to have a gooseberry too. And then we're ready for the fourth step. So the fourth world and the fourth type of fruit that represents this world is the world of, if you remember, Atzilut, emanation, which is really a world in which God dwells wholesomely, because they're fully, there's no room for anyone else. It's almost like living next to or in your station in your house to have as its electricity. It's impossible. You won't be able to withstand the awesomeness of the light and of the power of the light. So too with this highest world, the world of emanation, since God dwells there so fully and unreservedly, there's really no room for anyone else except for, as mentioned, the souls of those very few righteous like Moses, Queen Esther, Rabbi Akiva, and so on. But otherwise, the simpletons like me, I don't know about you, but the simpletons like me can't even live, because God's light is entirely revealed. Therefore, there is really no fruit that represents this world. The light of God is so radiant and so powerful that there's room for existence of those types of fruits. So there is no fruit that represents this world. Now, what does that mean? That means that we don't eat, but instead we take a short, very brief moment of silence to connect light and to hope. Radiance, all light that is again fully and entirely shines through and has an impact on us. And in a way, can you hear me? Because I just got a chat that my audio connection is not good. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, fantastic. All right. So in a way, we simply take a short moment of silence instead of eating a fruit. I'm breaking up a lot. Okay, we'll have to see how this evolves. I'm sorry. But okay, but in any case, a short moment of silence. Let's connect to the world of emanation, of Atzilut, and then we'll continue with the 4 cups of wine. And this is a time also to ask for God's light, as the Kabbalists suggest, to really permeate every area of our lives, even the dark areas, even the challenging areas. And I would suggest that as we connect to God's light from Olam HaAtzilut, from this, let's ask that God's light shines through this terrible pandemic and finally expels it from the world altogether, with the bad things to bring about redemption. So just a short moment of silence, as the Kabbalists suggest. All right, those are the 4 types of fruits. And again, you can have as many fruits as you want. Before we go to the 4 cups of wine, I do want to make a special mention of the 7 fruits of Israel that we kept referring to, because they should be used in order to not just celebrate the fruits themselves in the worlds, but also at the same time to celebrate the land of Israel, which is our land, which is the home of every Jew. So the fruits of Israel are wheat, barley, grapes, had so figs, pomegranate, olives, and dates. Those are the 7 fruits. And again, I would encourage you, if you're doing a Tu BiShvat Seder at home, to eat them in Shvat Seder. Okay, friends, let's now go to the 4 cups of wine. It's also an entire Tu BiShvat Seder. So, by the way, I'm trying to market any particular brand here. You can use any kosher wine you'd like. I just happen to have these 2 brands here. But for the first cup, we'll fill the cup, or not fill it completely. I'm just going to have a little bit to have another class after this, so I don't want to come drunk. But a bit of white wine, as you can see it in the camera, white wine. And the reason for that is because this white wine, continuing to celebrate the 4 worlds, celebrates the ultimate world, the world of emanation, that is completely white. White, the Kabbalists teach, is the color of purity. By the way, that's why many wear a kittel on Yom Kippur, white garment. That's why people wear white also under their chuppah. A bride and a groom sometimes wear white. That again, because it's the color of purity. And since we are celebrating the world where God is revealed fully, and it's a pure world, that purity is completely wholesome. And this whiteness of the wine represents again or celebrates that world. Now, if we drink it, I want to add yet another dimension to the Tu BiShvat Seder that we haven't spoken of yet, because this dimension is particularly represented by the 4 cups of wine. What dimension? I'm speaking about the 4 seasons. There are 4 seasons, as we all know. I mean, in Arizona, we don't really feel them, except for the past few days. I think we felt the winter with snow falling in Scottsdale. I believe since it hasn't snowed like this since 1988, I was reading. But not always do we feel the 4 seasons. In other parts of the world, we do. But we do know that the trees that we are selling to be are influenced by the 4 seasons, gravely, immensely. Therefore, the 4 seasons find a way included in the Tu BiShvat Seder. What season does this represent besides the Olam HaAtzilut, the world of emanation that represents? What season does the white wine represent? Well, it represents what's white. We saw it yesterday in Scottsdale even. Snow, right? So it represents the winter where everything turns white. By the way, if you go up to Sedona, you'll see the mountains are completely white. It represents the winter season that also, by the way, ensures that they go inward, metaphorically, and replenish their strength. To mention what the Lubavitcher Rebbe very, very powerfully and poignantly mentioned once, that is that if human beings are like the trees, we too have moments in which we go inwards, and outwardly we may see, it seems that we have slowing, particularly of the model of the teenager. Teenagers sometimes are very rebellious, and on the outside that they stopped growing, and that they are and almost dead, like trees. They are going through that is of rejuvenation, so that soon in the spring they'll be able to blossom once again and then contribute to society. Therefore, we should never give up on a tree, as we never give up on a human being. No matter if they see on the outside, we should know that they are like those trees in the winter. This is a cup of wine that represents the winter. I hope I didn't break up again, but this cup of wine that represents the winter celebrates our connection and our determined connection and conviction. Connect to those who seem dead on the outside. It's our duty to go and help them rejuvenate themselves so that when spring comes, when their spring comes, they'll be able to blossom. L'chaim, everybody will say the blessing of Hagefen over wine. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri Hagefen. L'chaim. Okay, now for the second cup of wine, I don't have any rosé with me, but so therefore what I'm going to do really is mix some white wine with some red wine to create that pinkish color.
What's your name? May count.
I'll put red here.
So here we go, just a drop of red wine in the white wine. If you have rosé, it's a little bit too much of a drop, but it doesn't matter. It creates a pinkish color nonetheless. Let me try.
Right.
Okay, so it should have some type of pinkish color. Now, why? First and foremost, again, because it represents now, after the world of emanation, remember, Olam HaTzilut comes Olam HaBriya, which is the world of creation, which is, again, a world in which God's Shekhinah, God's presence dwells, not as powerfully as it dwells in the first world. There's room for souls. Now, souls are good, but again, it's not entirely white. This is a little bit too red. My mixture didn't work out. So it should be a little more white than red. But so that whiteness again represents God, the godliness revealed, but it has room for other things, for souls. And therefore we add a little bit of red. Now the souls really also represent in this world, represent the life, the blood that they will come into, the bodies that they will come into. Because souls, as they stand alone, are of no good. I mean, they're of good for themselves, but they're of no good to this world. Only when a soul comes down to this world and is charged with a mission, can a soul then accomplish all that it desires to accomplish. And therefore, we add a little bit of red to also remind the souls that live in that second world that although it is hard for them to come down to this world, this is where they'll be fulfilled. This is where they'll then be even more elevated than they were before. So it's the blood, the body, that is attached to the soul in this world of Bria, of creation, that we are also celebrating. Okay, L'chaim, everybody. But we all fulfill our mission in this world, and honestly, L'chaim, L'chaim.
L'chaim.
All right. I'll put this cup away. Actually, I don't need to put this cup away. I'm going to try to create another mixture. And that is that this third cup of wine has to be much more red than it was white. Not fully red yet, but much more red than it was white. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that second cup of wine that was mostly white, but a little bit of red, now represents the spring, the life of this world, that second season coming into color again, where there's a lot of good vibrations happening in the soil of the world. The third cup of wine, going to the world first, represents really the world of Yatsera, the world of formation, where we said there's a little bit of room for bad, but because the angel of death, for example, exists there and so on, but it's still a very godly world, a world where the angels reside. And that's the color red. The color red, by the way, in Judaism, if white represents said purity, the color red in according to Kabbalah represents the color of justice. So God's light is much more contracted in this world, therefore giving room for the angel of death, for some bad. And therefore there's more justice in this world. That justice is what contracts God's light, right? And now this world is celebrated now again with adding even more justice, the color red, to the color white, to the color of purity that represented God's unreserved and unhindered light. Now, the season that this represents is the season of the summer, in which the redness of the summer now, of the sun of the summer, is in full display. Okay, we'll celebrate this third season, the third world too, and we'll ask God as we celebrate all these seasons that He should bless each and every one of these seasons with all of His blessings. They should be blessed, bring blessings upon this world and give us all good health and happiness always. L'chaim.
Amen.
All right, the fourth cup of wine.
Can we celebrate Tu BiShvat next year all together?
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
We'll include that blessing in the L'chaim too. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Hannah. Beautiful. Good. Okay. The fourth cup of wine is a cup that's entirely red. I don't mix it at all. It's entirely red. You can use any Cabernet, any Merlot, any Shiraz, any Pinot Noir, you can use your favorite taste. But it's entirely red. Why? Because, again, if white represented the color of purity, according to Kabbalah, red represents the color of justice. This world is a world in which the attribute of justice is most dominant. It's most dominant because first it contracts this world completely. And no, I don't have any driving plans for today, at least not in the next 2 hours. But thanks for that comment. Beautiful. Anyway, but it's because God's light is completely contracted. So God needed to exercise the attribute of justice to contract His light. And at the same time also, that contraction of light gives birth to a lot of painful things that happen in this world. This is revealed. And therefore, many of our prayers asks God, it's a prayer that we say, by the way, it's one of the most beautiful prayers, at least in my eye, that we say each and every morning before Hodu. If you come to shul, you will have missed that prayer. You should say it in a korbanot. But we ask God, which means that we ask God that your compassion, your attribute of compassion, should overpower the attribute of justice that unfortunately is found too much in this world. And we ask God to wear His clothes of mercy and not judge the people with severity. Again, to the fact that this world unfortunately has a lot of justice, but we pray and beseech God to include his attribute of mercy so that it eventually overpowers the justice of this world. But this color is what celebrates this world again, a world that is full of justice. And as we drink it, we should have in mind again that God, that same prayer that I mentioned, that God's compassion should overcome his anger and his justice, and you should in a way make sure that that justice is not used at all with his judgment towards us, towards this world, and instead that he judges us only with mercy and compassion. Before we drink it, this season is the season of fall, if you haven't guessed it yet. Fall is a season maybe that is most colorful. I mean, I lived in Europe, and I know in Toulouse, France, which is also considered the city of flowers. You see the redness of that season in the most exposed and revealed way. It's so beautiful. That's when all the leaves start to fall off and the streets with redness. And we pray also that not only that God's compassion should overpower his justice, but we pray that the upcoming season of fall will be a season of only good health and happiness and redemption to us and to our world. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim.
All right, friends. One last thing that should conclude your Tu BiShvat Seder. And unfortunately, I don't have it here. I mean, I went yesterday to Trader Joe's and to Fry's. I couldn't find one, unfortunately. But that is a new fruit. It could be any fruit you haven't eaten in at least 1 year. That's what a new fruit is considered to be. I've eaten all these fruits within this year. In Rosh Hashanah, we have our own Seders and so on. So I couldn't find a new fruit. But the reason we have a new fruit is because we say the blessing of Shaykh. Now, the blessing of Shaykh is recited, as you all know, each time we face something new in life, whether it's a new fruit, a new journey back to the bride and the groom. They say, according to the Sephardi custom at least, the Shaykh under the chuppah, because they're beginning this new journey of life together. Each time something new happens, we say the blessing of Shaykh. Now, this blessing ought to be said on Tu BiShvat to ask God to open for this world. If this filled with pandemics and activities, we ask God as he rejuvenates and renews the world, the trees of the world, the soil of the world, the planet Earth itself, then he should also rejuvenate it with only blessings, and all the curses should be behind. Or in the words of that beautiful Sephardic poem that is recited each and every Rosh Hashanah, ask God, which means may this past end with all of its curses, and may this new year of trees, new year for planet Earth, begin with only blessings from this point onward. That's why we recite again the blessing of Shaykh. So I'd like to volunteer anyone who may have. I see Jordan and Nana, you guys have fruits there. Do you have any new fruit? Can you say the Shaykh on behalf of all of us? Oh, you do have a new fruit. That looks like a good fruit.
Dragon fruit.
Oh, dragon fruit. There you go. So go for it. I'm going to spotlight you, and you're going to say the Shaykh on behalf of all of us. And again, as we say the Shaykh and we say Amen to the blessing, friends, let's have in mind that indeed all the negativities that befell planet Earth this year should end right now as we're about to BiShvat and start a whole new cycle. A cycle, please God, with only blessings for us individually and collectively, including the blessing of the Mashiach coming tonight. And we'll all say Shvat Seder with the Kabbalists themselves in Jerusalem. Let's go, Jordan.
Hey, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehachianu v'kiyamanu v'hiyanu lazman hazeh.
Amen. Thank you. Amen.